Greetings and welcome back, fellow dreamer of worlds, weaver of destinies, master of the dice. My name's Ben. I'm the rookie DM, here to tell you about my journey in the early days as a DM and the mistakes I've made, the lessons I've learned, and the story that we are telling with my players. And hopefully to help you just learn more about what it's like to be a DM and encourage you to DM for a group in your own city, because I think it's super fun and super rewarding, and I think you should give it a shot. So if you have not watched the first few videos, I encourage you to do so because it sets up a lot of context for this campaign that I'm running and this homebrew world. We are running D&D 5e 2024 rules, homebrew world, long form campaign. So let's get back into it. When we left off, the players had just entered into this lost temple to Myrkul on Okoe Island. After being marooned and shipwrecked on this island on one of the beaches, they followed a set of footprints into a cave system that eventually led to this lost temple to Myrkul from who knows how long ago. When we last left off, the players were looking into an open sarcophagus with a stairway leading down into the temple to Myrkul. They follow the stairway down into a dimly lit hall with ever-glowing wall sconces with this dim purplish hue. As they venture down this hallway, they eventually come upon a room that has 5 exits, not counting the hallway they just came in from. So there's one hallway directly in front and 2 doorways on the left, 2 more on the right. One doorway on the left and 1 doorway on the right. And there's no actual door, it's just an open archway. So they can see, has a set of stairs leading up. And basically, with this, I totally stole this from another YouTube video that I saw, but I thought it was a super cool and fun idea, and I modified it slightly. But basically, these two, the left and right directions, are roughly mirrors of each other, and the across the hallway is if you go across the hallway, there's sort of this balcony type thing but with no rail, and there's a pedestal with a skull on it with like big openings for the eyes or in the eye sockets. And then you see 60 feet across is another balcony with another open archway, but there's no, these are level 2 players. They can't fly, they can't teleport, can't do any of that. So they got to solve a puzzle to create a bridge, essentially. So if you go on either the left or the right, what you will find is if you go on the doorway that doesn't have the stairs, there's just darkness, and it's magical darkness. If you go on the stairway, you go up to a balcony that has a pedestal with a circular golden ring and a piece of glass in the middle of it, and it's an enchanted device that allows one person to see through it and pierce through the magical darkness. As you look through this device, looking through the magical darkness, you see a narrow pathway about 7 or 8 feet wide that winds and meanders for about 120 feet before it gets to it's kind of like a cave wall that forms a natural opening, but the floor has actually been paved with stone. And on this sort of like half circle paved area is a pedestal. And on the pedestal is a large red gem resting on a very old pillow that is covered by a piece of glass. Like a dome-like piece of glass. And in front of this pedestal is a pressure plate. Which everyone's going to think is a trap at first, right? But you have to stand on this pressure plate to get the glass to remove. And I did it this way because two of my party members for the second group have a familiar, and one of them has an imp familiar that has blind sight. So completely negates my trap, because not only can it fly, but it can see through the magical darkness. But I was like, well, it kind of kills this whole puzzle and thing if it can just grab it. So that's why I actually live on the spot in the middle of the session just ad-libbed this whole pressure plate situation, because I was like, okay, I want a humanoid's weight required to lift the glass to get the thing. I want them to go through this. So how this played out in real time, it took the players a while to explore this, kind of figure out the implied solution that I gave. And, you know, maybe I shouldn't have added the glass in the pressure plate thing, and maybe I should have just let the imp do it. But I just thought it was really fun. I wanted them to go through solving it in a more like quote unquote proper way. So they decided to go through this trap. So how I did it is I actually had a blindfold. It's actually just like a sleeping mask. And the player that was going to go through the darkness had to wear the blindfold, like the actual person in real life wore the blindfold. And then I had printed out on a sheet of paper a little map of the winding path. What you do is a player's blindfolded and they're holding their mini in front of them, and there's a piece of paper directly in front of them, and they have to guide their mini in like on the table across the path without leaving it. And how they do that is a player tells them which way to go. Communication, team building exercise kind of thing. So that's why I designed it the way that I did. So I had one player giving directions to another player, and the other players were just watching, but it was fun and it was interesting. So they went through that. You grab the two gems, you put them in the skull, and a purplish, semi-transparent magical bridge forms connecting the two. I had the skull sort of descend into the ground and get covered up by stone, because it's sort of locking it in place. I didn't want them, taking the gems and then selling them off and then needing them later, because they would need them later for what's coming down the road. So that's part of, like, as a DM, I'm thinking through, are they, like, what nasty nonsense could the players do that might completely screw this up and like break the game in a way that's not fun. It actually actually breaks the game. And that them taking those stones and selling them and not having access to them or something would actually break the game for later. So I designed it in such a way to where that was not going to be an option. Trying to save, I want to give the players plenty of options to do whatever they want, but not at the expense of like actually destroying the story, because they're going to need to come back to this temple later to solve a problem that's been created by this halfling rogue. So they go through that. There's another chamber where they fight some skeletons, and in this chamber they see behind closed bars is a dead body of like some kind of troll or large humanoid type beast, but it doesn't awaken for the purposes of this fight. It's going to wake up later. So they fight some skeletons. One of them's a necromancer skeleton mage that I kind of homebrewed, and it could cast a couple of spells. It could cast Hunger of Hadar, which I thought is just a super cool, fun flavored spell. It also could cast Mind Sliver, which I think was like a second level spell. And then there's a cantrip variant of the same idea, just necrotic damage, that it could cast as well. Which that second level spell, if I think it's called Mind Sliver, was actually very deadly for a party of level 2. But it could only do it once per day. So I wanted, again, beefing up the encounter, making it kind of scary. We had a couple players go unconscious briefly, but no one died. So that was good. If I'm designing a battle, if I'm trying to make it kind of hard, my goal is like, I want the player sweaty a little bit, but I don't actually want anyone to die. If there's a boss battle, then an encounter can be actually deadly. But again, we're literally like in this point, session 3 of the campaign. I really don't want anyone to die yet. Like, I don't want anyone to die really ever, but especially now. So I felt like that for the party of 6, That was balanced really well. I had, I think, 6 total skeletons, with one of them being the mage that could cast Hunger of Hadar. And that cast Hunger of Hadar, like, pretty early. Sometimes, this is something else you can do as a DM, and I'm curious what you guys think of this. Sometimes I actually roll initiative for the enemies, and sometimes, especially for, like, bosses or more important enemies, I just give them initiative of 20. Or 18, or, you know, something pretty high, because it actually helps control the balance of the encounter a little bit. So if I have, again, like for this skeleton fight, I have a mage skeleton who's going to cast Hunger of Hadar, which is a radial spell, right? It has like an area of effect. I think it's a 20-foot radius or something. And it is kind of reliant on the players being in relatively close proximity to one another, which means it's better to cast it earlier in the battle. So that's why I wanted the mage to go pretty high in the order before they had a chance to really spread out across this chamber. And you could say, you know, that's a bit of metagaming, but like as a DM, you're going to metagame. Like, you are the DM. That's part of your job. It's just that, like, are you metagaming in a way that makes things interesting and fun? Or are you metagaming in a way to subvert your players? You know, so that's the thing that I try to keep in mind is like, yeah, sometimes I do things in a way to set things up, or I want things to start off in a certain way, but I'm doing it with the goal of making things more interesting and fun, not subverting the players or trying to truncate them or play tricks on them. Like, everything is about fun, right? Ultimately, like, if we're not having fun, then, like, why are we doing this? Like, we're trying to have fun. So that's why I do some of these things. I finagle those things. And honestly, like, sometimes if they are just crushing one of the higher level enemies, like, way too easily, I will give them extra hit points mid-battle, depending on how they're doing. Like, if they're doing really well, I'll give them some extra hit points mid-battle, because I am still figuring out balance. I'm still figuring out how many hit points should a boss have? What ability should a boss have? And so and with some dice rolls, like I will fudge some dice rolls now and then, but again, it's all in the interest of fun, because if battles are too easy, the stakes are not high, it's not fun. It gets boring, right? Stakes are not high, it gets boring. So everything I do is very much in the interest of fun and trying to make the game more engaging and interesting for the players. But because I'm new, I don't have any issue fudging some rolls here and there, adding hit points or taking away hit points if I feel like it's necessary. You know, if I have a boss that's about to, I was like, oh man, this battle's really not going well. It's going to annihilate these guys, and it's the third session. Like, screw it. I'm taking 30 hit points off. Like, this is, you know, whatever it takes. Because again, it's all about the interest of fun, and I'm still learning. So I don't have any issue with creatively problem solving and ad-libbing in the moment, in the interest of fun. As long as it makes sense and the players, I don't want them to feel like I pulled one over on them, or it's like, oh, I know I told you it's this, but it's actually this now. Like, it's behind the scenes, it's covert, it's all in the interest of fun. So I'm curious what you guys think. I know, like, that idea could be kind of controversial. Some people think that whatever hit points you write down should it be, but it's like, well, I wrote down 73. It could have also been 86 if I knew better. I don't know better, so I'm figuring it out as I go. So I don't think, like, as a DM, you have to feel married to whatever you wrote down on a piece of paper ahead of the session. If you get into the heat of the session, in the heat of a battle, and you feel like maybe you gave an enemy, you gave the boss an ability to cast a spell that's pretty powerful, and you, in your notes, wrote down they could do it 3 times per day, but they did it once and half the party went unconscious. I don't see any reason why you can't say, you know what, actually, you know, I didn't tell the players that this guy could do the spell 3 times a day, and now I am executive decision deciding that is the only time they can do that spell because I don't want a TPK right now. Or maybe the inverse happens. You decided they can only cast it once per day, and they do it, and ends up not being all that effective. You're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm now deciding that he can cast it twice per day. I don't see any reason why like you can't do that as a DM, as long as you did not tell your players. Like, you don't lie to your players, right? You don't deceive them like an NPC might, right? But if you're speaking as a DM, I think whatever information you give them needs to be true, or it's false for a reason. Like, they rolled a natural 1 on their insight check, so maybe they believe something completely false about an NPC. That makes sense. They rolled a natural 1, right? But and the player sort of intuitively understands, I rolled a natural 1, my insight is shit, but I'm going to role play as if I believe that this person's not lying to me, right? So that's where the delicate balance is like, if you're saying something that you know is untrue to the player needs to have a reasonable understanding or expectation of knowing that it could be untrue, whether because it's an NPC that's telling that to them, because NPCs can lie all the time, or because they rolled really low on a check, or there's some other situation where the player could intuitively understand that the information that they're getting may or may not be accurate. And I think that's important, but I don't think, like, if for some reason they knew that a boss had an ability that was once per day, I'm not going to retcon middle of the battle and say now it's 3 times per day, because then they feel like it breaks the immersion of the world and of the setting, which kills the fun, right? And so if we're doing everything from the perspective of trying to maximize fun, then if I'm retconning something behind the screen, as it were, they don't need to know about it, because I don't want to kill immersion. I don't want to kill fun. And if I'm retconning something, it's actually with the goal of making it more fun. So I know there's a little bit of a tangent there, but I just thought that could be really helpful. So they go through that battle, and with the skeletons, I sort of like on the fly made this mage skeleton character and gave him some spells and thought it was really fun, and it made for a very well balanced encounter, and the players seemed to have a great time. Then they go, next chamber is a spiral staircase down with like 1 out of every 5 steps or so is trapped. If you step on the trap, a skull manifests or appears above them and falls in the middle of this staircase that goes around the outside of a circular chamber, and it just laughs hysterically. And they all have to roll a wisdom save, and if they fail the wisdom save, they make an unarmed strike on one of their comrades next to them. It's not a very deadly encounter. It's just kind of a fun little thing that I thought was interesting. It's a trap, not a particularly deadly one, but you don't really expect it. You know, you expect the trap to be spikes or poison or something. You don't expect a laughing skull to fall from the ceiling and cause you to lose your mind and hit something. And the excuse for making the attack is that you kind of like wince for a moment and open your eyes, and where your comrades used to be, you just see zombies that are ready to attack you. And to make sure it was not too deadly, because I don't know what state they're going to be in right after the previous encounter, the battle. That's where I made it the unarmed strike, because I didn't want the paladin attacking with a freaking glaive and taking out the wizard in one strike. This is not a boss battle. It's not supposed to be a deadly encounter. So that's kind of how I decided to balance that. Final chamber is the boss chamber, big boss chamber. Massive metal doors engraved with a portrayal mural of undead armies marching or being raised by this mysterious wizard figure. And throughout this temple, there have been murals and depictions of alluding to some kind of necromancer raising undead. It's been, foreshadowed throughout this entire temple. They get inside and they see a very large circular chamber with massive pillars that appear to be made out of bones, just bones stacked upon bones, all the way up to about a 50 or 60 foot ceiling. And then in the middle is a dome that has more murals painted of just undead armies marching on nations. And there is a pedestal in the middle on top of a bunch of circular chairs, so just circle stairs, circle, 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 just progressively getting smaller until you get to the top. So along the stairs, they see the following quote: "But I choose the dead, and by doing so, I truly win. All things must die, even the gods." Which I thought was like a really cool, badass quote, and it kind of portrays the mindset of Myrkul, or someone who might choose Myrkul as their god, of like, yeah, I choose the dead because everyone dies, even the gods. So ultimately, I'm going to win because I'll be the last one standing kind of mentality. So I thought that was really cool. Then on the dome-like ceiling around the perimeter, there is so you have the ceiling that goes kind of like this, and then it goes up to a dome. But on the angled part, pointing down toward the pedestal in the middle, is glowing runic text. And they must succeed on an Arcana check in order to determine that this is necromantic in nature. It has to do with summoning undead. And it's pointing toward this pedestal in the middle, which has nothing on it. But there is a plaque on the front of the pedestal, which basically says that it says, "Praise be to the Lord of Bones, the Deathless, the Reaper of all that lives. May he grant favor and wisdom to his servant Zandilgaran the Marked, and bestow on him the honor of serving the Bone Lords as the Bone Lord's champion for the rest of time. Blessed be Myrkul, god of my rising, and woe to any who would disturb this most precious of offerings." So that is the plaque on the pedestal, but there's nothing on it. So it's like, hey, this is my precious offering to my god, my deity, and it's gone. If they investigate and succeed, they'll notice a layer of dust that's sort of like an oval-like in nature, kind of hinting or further alluding to the fact that something's missing. On the far side of this chamber is another large carving of a skull with a blood altar essentially in front of it. And that's it. There's actually no boss and there's no fight in this chamber. There's some skeletons lying around, and that's about it. Now what happens is they eventually realize, okay, there's nothing else to see here, and they leave, and that's what they did. Both parties left. But now they realize, okay, it's ominous, it's foreshadowing. It's like there's something that was here that is not here, and this very temple threatens that there will be a consequence to something being taken from here, and it appears to have been taken. And we've already fought some undead, and we see murals of this guy raising undead, so it's like, it's not, a freaking Sherlock Holmes mystery, what's going on here. So they eventually leave. They go up the stairs to the above ground, finally above ground for the first time since they woke up on the beach. And from there, they can see a river flowing down toward the ocean, and with a successful perception check, they can see a village on a beach a bit of a ways off. And by this point, we're getting pretty close to the end of the day. It's late afternoon, but there's enough time for them to hike, follow the river, follow the footprints down toward the village. And we're getting close to the end here. So I had, for the first group, I had a opportunity for them to find a ruin that had another like old temple, not like a full-blown temple, but like basically like a little church type thing with a small village that had been destroyed. And there's some lore and stuff there. For the first group, I let them find that at this point in time. But for the second group, just the way that the pacing was and how we're getting later in the day, I kind of wanted them to get to the village by nightfall. It wasn't absolutely necessary, but it was, I thought it was going to be better than, there's one specific thing that I really wanted them to see in the village, and that's what we're going to get to here in a minute. So that's why for the second group, they took longer in the cave area in the Temple of Myrkul than the first group did, so it was later in the day. And so I decided I'm going to just put a pin in this other little like lost village thing that has some lore in it, and we're going to save it for later when they go back to the temple, if they decide to do so, which they probably will because of what's about to happen next. So as they get close to the village, they hear cries for help. And upon approaching, they see three wolves harassing this half-elven young man who's like halfway up a tree, calling for help. As the party of 6 shows up, I don't even run an encounter or a battle here. 3 wolves against what is now 7 combatants is A, not an interesting battle, and B, realistically, being outnumbered, I think outnumbered, the animals would probably flee and not try to initiate a combat. And that's what I decided to have them do here. Is they show up, the wolves flee, we don't need another battle, we've already had a battle with the carrion crawler, and we already had a battle with the undead, and then for the second group they also had a battle with the crabs, and this is all technically in the same day. So that's a lot of encounters and battles already for just one day of in-game time. So I thought, we're just, the wolves are going to scatter. It makes sense. And this guy is, his name is Lucan, Lukan, I believe is how I spelled it. And he is the brother to Cammy, the herbalist who lives just outside of the village. And these NPCs are just there for, they do have 1 or 2 healing potions to sell, but they also provide some information on Okoe Village and what's going on. So the party saves him from being harassed by these wolves. He's super grateful. He leads them to the village and tells them a little bit about this figure called the Baron. The Baron is the individual who is in charge of Okoe Village. He is the one who founded it, he's the one who rules it, and he's the one to whom they must pay taxes. And the supposed reason for these taxes is to pay for the small private mercenary force that he has to protect the village from would-be pirates, which are a legitimate threat. However, the taxes also help pay, and the people don't necessarily know this, but the taxes also help pay for the Baron's interests as a collector. So this Baron, we'll get into a little bit later, but he's kind of an interesting character. I'm going to try, we'll see how this goes. I am going to try a little bit of a Jeff Goldblum interpretation for this guy because I just think it's going to be funny and interesting. But we'll see how that goes. But that is where we ended the last session that we have with the second group. They approached Okoe Village and they saw one last little tidbit that I will leave you with for this video. As you crest over a hill and clear the tree line, you look down upon the small village of Okoe. And a couple 100 feet away from you, you can see a dark, short individual, darkly clothed, handing over a bag with some sort of round, heavy object inside of it. And in exchange, you see a well-dressed, older, slim gentleman with a drow elf well-armed to his side, handing the short, darkly dressed individual a bag of what appears to be coin. And that is where we left off at the end. And what you can infer, and what the players have successfully inferred, is that this individual is not only the one who stole their money, but is also the one who took this diamond skull and has now sold it to who they will surmise and have surmised is the Baron, who just loves collecting artifacts and is happy to pay for them. Now, what is going to happen next? Who knows? I mean, I do. But we will see what happens in the next session. So now is where things get kind of interesting. They're in Okoe Village. There's the halfling rogue that stole their money and also may or may not have pissed off Myrkul and whoever this Xandelgaran the Marked happens to be. We have a Baron who is putting heavy taxes on his citizens. Is he an evil guy? Is he aloof? Is he just greedy? Who knows? We got to figure that out. They also need to figure out how to get off of this island. They have not yet talked to one of my favorite NPCs, Captain Electo, who it happens to be docked at Akoi Island or Akoi Village at this point in time. And then we have the Glowtide Festival happening in Satis on the first day of summer here pretty soon. So that'll be kind of the next story arc, or the next arc of our story will be Glowtide Festival, assuming the players don't decide to just make Akoi Island their permanent home for forever, which I don't think they will do. So anyways, hope you found this interesting. I love sharing this journey with you. I'm curious what you think of the encounters that I've come up with so far. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they boring? Are they interesting? Are they fun? Let me know what you think. I'm having a blast doing this. I think it's super interesting, and I'm having so much fun coming up with this, and I'm curious what you think. The next game that we have is here in a few days. So I will be recording the next video after we do that session, and I will tell you what the players do. I will tell you what the story unfolds and what I prepared, and we will see how it all works out. So anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.